Welcome to Coffee with Citrin Cooperman. I'm your host, Mayor Mintz. Coffee with Citrin Cooperman is a video series in partnership with Commercial Observer that features engaging interviews with esteemed real estate executives. The purpose of the series is to dive into pressing matters that affect the industry and your respective businesses. Today I'm joined by CJ Follini, the founder and managing principal of Noyak. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Noyak does?
Okay, well, we're actually two things. So we are an education enterprise, an online education company for 21 to 39-year-olds to learn about the private markets. We're trying to prepare two generations for the great wealth transfer, which will transform our society, in our opinion. It's never happened before. And then, once you've gained all this information, research, peer-to-peer community, what are you going to do with it? And that's where we come to the offerings, my first love, commercial real estate. One of the offerings, and there will be an entire suite, one of the offerings is a REIT. And it's a diversified logistics REIT that, for me, has not existed because I always wondered, why are REITs single asset? Why are they one-trick ponies? Imagine being a limited service hotel during COVID, not a good time. But if you are diversified, which of course modern portfolio theory, diversification is the principal tenet, if you're diversified, you can find the white space. And that's what we are. We're constantly looking for commercial real estate white space.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the product that you guys are working on and how you're repurposing and transforming different spaces?
Well, in the interest of finding that white space that I mentioned, one thing that we have built over the last 2 years is something called a mobility hub. That's our branded term, but it's simply a repurposing of parking garages into also diversified logistics hubs. Mobility, because you don't have to do destination to destination delivery anymore, where you can go to a central hub and have a layer cake of supply chain purposes. You can buy parking garages, which are excellent cash flowing properties, relatively cheaply. And by repositioning their category into infrastructure, supply chain, delivery, EV charging, you are not only creating an ESG momentum, but you're also putting it into a new category and, of course, a new price point.
So I can basically have the Amazon package delivered to my car instead of to my house effectively.
Well, let's talk about what's perfect. So you can go and let's say you're adjacent to an office building or at a hotel. You can charge your EV car. You can pick up your Amazon or Walmart package. You can maybe pick up some artisanal food because there's a cold storage pod on the roof. And if you live there, you can have a co-warehousing floor where you have, just like self-storage, you have your own lockers. All of that in one space instead of Amazon delivering a toothbrush 45 miles to your house.
Are you seeing this as an investment? Are you seeing this as ESG? Or how is the business model working?
Well, that's a very good question. So everyone has their own point of view on it. For us, of course, we are an investment entity. And this is one of our asset classes, something that we are, I would say, pioneering, creating this mobility hub, but we're doing it with a partner. The SP Plus, formerly known as Standard Parking, is the largest parking manager and a publicly traded company. They manage 4,000 garages. We're working with them together to create this, for them, an ESG movement. For Shell Corp, a partner, an ESG movement. For us, it's an investment, and we believe a pretty darn good one.
And how's Shell helping you on it?
They're providing the EV charging. So they are investing, also not quite subsidized, but I would say incentivized by the Inflation Reduction Act. They are electrifying our garages, sometimes to the tune of 1 million plus, and in return, they are putting rows of Type 2 and high-speed Type 3 chargers for fleet charging, for retail charging, and it's building an entire EV brand for them. Plus, it's enhancing their ESG incentives. Now, you have Amazon, who we also are working with their putting lockers in these garages. They are now getting Rivian vans delivered. So they're going to have EV deliveries through their Rivian vans. Those have to be charged somewhere. And Rivian vans need a Type 3 charger with a large transformer. That's what Shell is doing to enable Amazon to deliver in urban populations.
That sounds like it's a great need. What other ideas and what other things are people doing to transform space? Because it seems like there's a lot of stuff. If you look in the market, you read the paper, the Commercial Observer, you'll see there's a lot of different categories of assets that are in need of repurposing. What else besides for garages are you seeing people thinking about?
You know, Mayor, another excellent question, and you brought off camera, creativity. I think this, you know, all moments of transition economically, they spur creative thinking, even in, let's be honest, it's commercial real estate. You don't have a lot of artists working commercial real estate. However, there are a lot of brilliant people who are being creative. Aside from our layer cake of supply chain, i.e. the mobility hubs, everyone is talking about the death of commercial offices. Yeah, there is a new paradigm shift with how people work. But you know what those offices can be in the right locations? Life science labs and offices for the life science and healthcare community. So for me, depending on the location and depending on the size of frankly the office stock, you have healthcare centers waiting to be born from office buildings that no one's going into anymore.
So what do you see? I know there's been a lot of changes in technology, and I think you guys are at the forefront of using that to create real estate uses that people never thought about before. What do you see happening in the next 3 to 5 years as the world becomes more technology heavy?
I would say in a word, two things I already touched on. The congregation of logistics and delivery ideas. So all of our massive gig economies, Uber Eats. Let's go to Uber in general. I just saw Dara Khosravi, the CEO of Uber this morning, talking about his great earnings. Well, you know what those earnings were propelled by? Not by their rideshare business, by their delivery business, by their logistics business. So for me, Uber Eats, they are on to what we're talking about. Now, they're not an infrastructure company, but they're going to need infrastructure. They're going to require mobility hubs in the places so you don't do long distance point-to-point logistics and deliveries. So if you can get that old hub and spoke, remember when we used to have point-to-point airlines? Same idea. You're going to see deliveries in urban populations or even tier 2 cities that are hub and spoke. The infrastructure for that hub and spoke is the delivery service, Uber, Uber Eats, Uber Logistics, and 2, mobility hubs. 3, healthcare, point of sale healthcare. Why not go to an office building for your vaccination or your testing, right? Point of sale healthcare is going to also be another reuse of office buildings.
I think you're starting to see that with like the urgent cares popping up, especially I'm in Manhattan and you see a lot of them all over the place. I think I've gone to urgent care more in the last 2 years than I've gone to a doctor.
Absolutely, likewise. Now, they started with a retail concept, so all of the City MD locators and real estate folks who work there, they all came from the retail business. I know several of them. But I believe the next iteration of that kind of urgent care might be sort of a long-term acute care in an office building where you don't locate hospitals in a faraway place where people have to drive to. They're in office buildings, they're distributed. The same way we talked about Hertz and other rental car companies. Once upon a time, you had to go to the airport to get a rental car, right? And you had to drive there, and then when you dropped it off, you had to get a ride back. Well, now that's distributing. So all of these logistics and supply services are being redistributed in urban, and not even that, suburban, exurban locations. I want to say a bit about technology because I think that the next creative plateau for a lot of real estate is going to come through a marry of retail technology like AR. We talked about AR in malls, gamifying locations with the stores becoming characters in a game, as well as new directions for offices with healthcare. So I think that after we get past this little economic transition, there are going to be prop tech companies that are going to transform a lot of these underutilized spaces.
Sounds good. Looking forward. Thank you for taking your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.